Sometimes the most ordinary Tuesday afternoon can become the moment that changes everything. In a small grocery store in suburban Atlanta, a 9-year-old boy was about to face the kind of humiliation that scars children for life. A white store manager, drunk on her small portion of power, decided this black child didn't belong in her establishment. She screamed, she pushed, she called security, and she made sure everyone in that store knew exactly what she thought about him and his kind. But what this manager didn't know, what she couldn't have possibly imagined, was that this wasn't just any child. And the woman who would walk through those doors in exactly 12 minutes wasn't just any mother. Sometimes justice doesn't come from the courts or the police. Sometimes it comes wearing designer heels and carrying the power to change someone's life forever. If you want to see how a single moment of prejudice can backfire in the most spectacular way possible, stay with me, because what you're about to hear will restore your faith that the universe has a sense of justice. Like and subscribe if you believe that everyone, no matter how small, deserves to be treated with dignity. The morning had started like any other for 9-year-old Tyler Washington. His backpack bounced against his shoulders as he walked the familiar route to Henderson's Market, the small neighborhood grocery store where his mother had been sending him since he turned 8. The October air carried the scent of fallen leaves and the promise of another typical Tuesday in suburban Atlanta. Tyler clutched the $20 bill his mother had given him, along with a handwritten list in her careful cursive: milk, bread, eggs, and his favorite cereal, the kind with the colorful loops that made the milk taste like rainbow. Tyler had always been a careful child, the kind who double-checked the traffic before crossing the street and always said please and thank you to store clerks. His mother, who worked long hours at what Tyler only knew was an important job downtown, had raised him to be respectful, polite, and to never cause trouble for anyone. She'd drill into him the importance of keeping his hands visible, speaking clearly, and always being on his best behavior when he was out in the world without her. As he pushed through the heavy glass doors of Henderson's Market, Tyler felt the familiar rush of cool air conditioning. The store wasn't fancy, just 3 aisles of necessities that served the working-class neighborhood, but it was clean, well-lit, and Tyler had never had any problems there before. He grabbed a red plastic basket and began making his way through his mother's list, carefully checking each item against her handwriting. The trouble started in aisle 2, near the breakfast cereals. Tyler was reaching for his favorite box when he accidentally knocked over a display of granola bars. The cardboard packages scattered across the linoleum floor with a rustling sound that seemed to echo through the quiet store. Tyler immediately dropped to his knees, scrambling to pick up every single package, his cheeks burning with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," he whispered to no one in particular, carefully restacking the display exactly as he'd found it. He'd been taught to clean up his messes, to take responsibility for his actions. His mother always said that's what separated good people from everyone else. That's when she appeared. Sharon Kellman, the day shift manager, came around the corner like a storm cloud gathering speed. She was a woman in her early 50s with bleached blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, and the kind of permanent scowl that suggested life had disappointed her in fundamental ways. Her name tag read, "Manager," in bold letters, and she wore it like a badge of absolute authority. "What do you think you're doing?" Her voice cut through the store's quiet atmosphere like a blade. Tyler looked up from where he was still kneeling, holding the last granola bar in his small hands. "I accidentally knocked these over, ma'am, but I'm fixing it," Tyler said, his voice small but clear. He held up the package as evidence of his efforts to make things right. "I'm really sorry." Sharon's eyes narrowed as she took in the sight of Tyler, a black child alone in her store surrounded by scattered merchandise. In her mind, she saw exactly what she expected to see. Trouble. "You kids think you can just come in here and tear up my store? Where are your parents? What are you even doing here by yourself?" Tyler felt his stomach twist. He'd done nothing wrong. Accidents happen, and he was fixing it. But something in this woman's tone made him feel like he was shrinking. "My mom sent me to get groceries, ma'am. I have a list and money." He reached into his pocket to show her the $20 bill and the carefully written list. "I don't care what you have," Sharon snapped, snatching the list from his hand and crumpling it without even looking at it. "I know your type. You come in here acting all innocent, then steal everything that isn't nailed down. I've been working retail for 25 years, kid. I can spot a thief from a mile away. The word thief hit Tyler like a physical blow. He'd never stolen anything in his life. His mother had raised him better than that. Ma'am, I'm not stealing anything. I'm just shopping for my mom. Please, I can show you the money. Don't you dare reach in your pocket again. Sharon's voice rose to a near shout, causing other customers to turn and stare. I saw what you were doing over here, knocking stuff over, probably trying to hide something you stole. Empty your pockets, right now. Tyler's hands trembled as he pulled out the contents of his pockets. The $20 bill, a stick of gum, and a small toy car his mother had bought him last week. Sharon snatched up each item, examining them as if they were evidence in a criminal case. Where did you get this money? A kid like you doesn't just walk around with $20. Did you steal this too? Her accusations were getting louder, and Tyler could feel the stares of other customers burning into his back. An elderly white couple had stopped their shopping to watch the scene unfold, their faces filled with judgment and assumption. My mom gave it to me for groceries, Tyler said, his voice now barely above a whisper. Tears were starting to form in his eyes, but he fought them back. His mother had taught him to be strong, to never let people see him break. But this woman was making him feel like he was guilty of something terrible, and he didn't understand why. Your mom, Sharon said the words like they tasted bitter in her mouth. What kind of mother sends a child out to steal for the family? I bet she's sitting at home right now, waiting for you to bring back whatever you can grab. She leaned down, bringing her face close to Tyler's. Her breath smelled like coffee and cigarettes. Well, it's not happening in my store, you little thief. That's when Sharon did something that would change everything. She grabbed Tyler by the arm, not gently, but with the kind of grip that would leave marks. Tyler cried out in surprise and pain as she began dragging him toward the front of the store. I'm calling the police, she announced to the store. We've got ourselves a little shoplifter here. This is what happens when parents don't teach their children right from wrong. Her voice carried the satisfaction of someone who believed she was performing a public service. Tyler tried to pull away, but Sharon's grip only tightened. Please, you're hurting me, he said, but she ignored his plea. The other customers in the store had now gathered to watch the spectacle, some nodding in approval, others looking uncomfortable but doing nothing to intervene. Ma'am, please. Tyler tried one more time, his voice cracking with emotion. I didn't do anything wrong. I was just shopping. My mom is going to be so worried when I don't come home. Your mom should have thought about that before she sent you out to steal from hard-working people, Sharon replied, dragging him past the checkout counters toward the customer service desk where the phone was located. As Sharon reached for the phone to call the police, Tyler felt completely helpless. He was a 9-year-old boy being accused of crimes he didn't commit, manhandled by an adult who seemed to hate him for reasons he couldn't understand. The injustice of it all was overwhelming. He thought about his mother, probably at work, having no idea that her son was being treated like a criminal for the simple act of trying to buy groceries. The store's automatic doors whooshed open just as Sharon began dialing. The sound made everyone turn to look at the entrance, including Tyler, who hoped desperately that someone, anyone, might help him. The clicking of heels on linoleum announced the arrival of a new customer, but Tyler was too scared and too focused on Sharon's grip on his arm to pay much attention. What he didn't see, what Sharon definitely didn't see, was the tall, elegant black woman who had just walked through those doors. She wore a perfectly tailored navy blue suit that spoke of success and authority, and her eyes were scanning the store for a very specific person. She'd come to check on her son, as she sometimes did during her lunch breaks, wanting to make sure his simple grocery run was going smoothly. Dr. Angela Washington was not just any mother. She was not someone you wanted to cross when it came to her child. As the newly appointed district attorney for Fulton County, she had spent the last 15 years building a reputation as someone who didn't back down from a fight, especially when it came to protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. And right now, she was looking at her 9-year-old son being manhandled by a store manager who had no idea she'd just made the biggest mistake of her career. Angela's trained prosecutor eyes took in the scene instantly. Her son, tears streaming down his face, being gripped by the arm by a middle-aged white woman who was clearly in a position of authority. The woman was speaking loudly into a phone, and Angela could make out enough words to understand that police were being called. Excuse me? Angela's voice cut through the chaos like a courtroom gavel. Every conversation in the store stopped. There was something in her tone, calm, controlled, but carrying an unmistakable authority, that demanded immediate attention. Sharon looked up from the phone, annoyed at being interrupted during what she considered her moment of civic duty. "Ma'am, I'm dealing with a shoplifting situation here. You'll need to wait your turn." "I don't think so," Angela replied, moving closer with the kind of measured steps that had intimidated defense attorneys across Georgia. "That's my son you're holding." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Sharon's grip on Tyler's arm loosened slightly as she processed this information. Tyler looked up at his mother with a mixture of relief and embarrassment, his small voice breaking as he said, "Mom, I didn't do anything wrong. I was just shopping like you told me to." Angela's eyes never left Sharon's face as she spoke to her son. "I know, baby. I know you didn't do anything wrong." Then to Sharon, "Let go of my child. Right now." Sharon, still holding the phone, seemed to be recalculating the situation, but her prejudices and her pride were stronger than her common sense. "Look, lady, I don't care whose kid he is. He was stealing, and I caught him red-handed. The police are on their way." "Stealing what exactly?" Angela's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath it. She pulled out her phone and began recording the interaction. "What did my son steal? He knocked over the display, and kids like him don't just knock things over by accident. They're casing the joint, looking for what they can grab." Sharon's argument sounded weak even to her own ears, but she was in too deep to back down now. "So let me understand this correctly," Angela said, her prosecutor training taking over. "You're holding my 9-year-old son and calling the police because he accidentally knocked over a display that he then cleaned up himself?" "It wasn't an accident," Sharon insisted, but her voice was losing its earlier confidence. Something about this woman was making her nervous. She carried herself like someone important, someone who might actually be able to cause problems. "Were you watching him when it happened?" Angela asked. "Well, no, but so you didn't actually see what happened, but you decided to accuse a child of theft based on your assumptions?" Angela took another step forward. "And then you put your hands on him without his consent or mine?" Tyler had stopped crying and was now watching his mother work with a mixture of awe and relief. He'd seen her in work mode before, usually when she was on important phone calls, but never defending him. It was like watching a superhero in action. Sharon was beginning to realize she might have made an error in judgment, but her pride wouldn't let her admit it. "I know what I saw. Kids from this neighborhood, they come in here all the time causing trouble. I was just protecting my store." "Kids from this neighborhood," Angela repeated slowly. "You mean black kids?" "I didn't say anything about race," Sharon said quickly, but everyone in the store could hear the lie in her voice. "You didn't have to." Angela held up her phone, showing that she was still recording. "You've said quite enough. Now I'm going to ask you one more time to let go of my son." Sharon finally released Tyler's arm, and the boy immediately moved to stand beside his mother. Angela put a protective arm around him, noting the red marks where Sharon had been gripping him. "What's your name?" Angela asked Sharon. "Why do you need to know that?" "Because when I file charges for assault and battery against a minor, false imprisonment, and violation of civil rights, I want to make sure I spell your name correctly." The color drained from Sharon's face. "Charges? Look, maybe I was a little hasty." "A little hasty?" Angela's composure cracked just slightly, revealing the fierce mother underneath the professional exterior. "You put your hands on my child. You humiliated him in front of strangers. You called him a thief with absolutely no evidence, and you were about to have him arrested for the crime of shopping while black." Other customers in the store were now pulling out their own phones, recording the confrontation. Sharon suddenly realized that this situation was spiraling far beyond her control. "Who are you?" Sharon asked, finally understanding that she was dealing with someone who might actually have the power to follow through on her threats. Angela reached into her purse and pulled out her business card, handing it to Sharon with a smile that held no warmth whatsoever. "District Attorney Angela Washington, Fulton County." Sharon stared at the card as if it were a poisonous snake. The district attorney. She had just assaulted and falsely accused the son of the most powerful prosecutor in the county. "Oh my God," Sharon whispered. I didn't know." "You didn't know what?" That he was my son? Would it have mattered if he was someone else's child? Angela's voice rose slightly, her professional mask slipping to reveal genuine anger. Every child deserves to be treated with respect and dignity, regardless of who their parents are. Sharon looked around the store desperately, hoping someone might come to her defense, but the other customers were either recording the scene or trying to pretend they weren't involved. The elderly couple who had been watching earlier were quietly slipping toward the exit. Mrs. Washington. District Attorney Washington. I think there's been a misunderstanding, Sharon stammered. Oh, there's been no misunderstanding, Angela replied. You revealed exactly who you are today. The question now is what we're going to do about it. Tyler tugged on his mother's sleeve. Mom, can we just go home? I don't want to be here anymore. Angela looked down at her son, seeing the exhaustion and embarrassment in his young face. Her heart broke a little more as she realized this was probably not the first time he'd experienced something like this, just the first time she'd been there to witness it. In a moment, baby, she said gently. Then to Sharon, I want to speak to the owner of this store. Mr. Henderson he's not in today, Sharon said weakly. Then get him on the phone. Right now. As Sharon fumbled with the phone, Angela knelt down to Tyler's level. Are you okay? Did she hurt you? Tyler nodded, then shook his head, then started crying again. I was so scared, Mom. She kept saying I was stealing, but I wasn't. I would never steal anything. You taught me better than that. I know you wouldn't, sweetheart. This isn't about anything you did wrong. This is about adults who make assumptions about children based on the color of their skin. Angela wiped his tears with her thumb. But I need you to know something. You never have to accept treatment like this. Not from anyone, do you understand? Tyler nodded, not fully understanding the larger implications of what had just happened, but beginning to grasp that his mother was someone people needed to respect. Sharon had managed to reach the store owner, James Henderson, and was now speaking to him in hushed, panicked tones. Angela could hear fragments of the conversation. The district attorney, her son, I think I made a mistake. After a few minutes, Sharon hung up the phone and turned back to Angela with the expression of someone about to face a firing squad. Mr. Henderson is on his way. He wants to speak with you personally. I'm sure he does, Angela replied. She was no longer recording, but several other customers still were. The incident was undoubtedly going to end up on social media within hours. While they waited for the owner, Angela began questioning Sharon with the same methodical approach she used in court. How long have you been working here? 3 years, Sharon answered reluctantly. In those 3 years, how many children have you accused of shoplifting? Sharon hesitated. I don't keep track of things like that. Let me rephrase. In those 3 years, how many white children have you accused of shoplifting? The silence stretched uncomfortably long. Everyone in the store knew the answer, even if Sharon couldn't bring herself to say it out loud. And how many black children? Angela continued. I treat everyone the same, Sharon said, but the lie was obvious to everyone present. Do you? Because from where I stand, it looks like you see a 9-year-old black boy cleaning up an accident he made, and your first instinct is to assume he's a criminal. You grab him, you humiliate him, you call the police. Tell me, if a white child had knocked over that display, would your reaction have been the same? Sharon opened her mouth to protest, but no words came out. She knew that if little Emma from down the street had knocked over the display, she would have helped her clean it up and maybe offered her a free piece of candy for being so responsible about fixing her mistake. James Henderson burst through the front doors like a man whose livelihood was on fire, which in many ways it was. He was a short, balding man in his 60s who had owned Henderson's Market for over 20 years. He'd built his reputation on being a friendly neighborhood store where everyone was welcome, and now that reputation was being destroyed in real time. District Attorney Washington, he said, slightly out of breath from running. I am so sorry about this situation. This does not represent the values of this store or how we treat our customers. Angela stood, keeping Tyler close to her side. Mr. Henderson, your manager accused my 9-year-old son of theft, based on no evidence whatsoever. She physically restrained him and was about to have him arrested for shopping. Henderson looked at Sharon with the kind of expression that suggested her employment was about to become past tense. Sharon, what the hell happened here? Sharon tried to explain her version of events, but it sounded even weaker when spoken aloud to her boss. The kid knocked over the display, and I thought, kids from this area, they sometimes... Stop talking, Henderson said sharply. Just stop talking. He turned back to Angela. District Attorney Washington, I want you to know that this behavior is completely unacceptable. I've served this community for 2 decades, and I've never had an incident like this. Haven't you? Angela asked pointedly. Or have you just never had someone with the resources to push back when it happened? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Henderson realized that this incident wasn't going to quietly disappear. The district attorney wasn't just any concerned parent. She was someone with the power to make this a much bigger problem. What can I do to make this right? Henderson asked. For starters, your manager needs to be terminated immediately, Angela said. No one who treats children this way should be in a position of authority over customers. Sharon gasped. Mr. Henderson, you can't fire me for doing my job. I was trying to protect the store. Your job is to provide customer service, not to racially profile children, Henderson replied. Clean out your locker. Your employment here is terminated effective immediately. The reality of losing her job hit Sharon like a physical blow. This isn't fair. I've worked here for 3 years. I've never had any complaints. You've never had any complaints that were taken seriously, Angela corrected. I'm willing to bet this isn't the first time you've treated black customers differently, just the first time you've been called out for it. As Sharon gathered her belongings, muttering under her breath about the unfairness of it all, Henderson continued trying to manage the crisis. District Attorney Washington, please, what else can I do? I want to make sure your son knows he's always welcome here. Angela looked down at Tyler, who was still pressed against her side. Tyler, do you want to shop here again? Tyler considered the question seriously. I don't know, Mom. What if other people here think the same thing about me? It was a heartbreaking question from a 9-year-old, revealing an awareness of racial prejudice that no child should have to carry. Angela felt a familiar fire burning in her chest, the same feeling that had driven her to become a prosecutor in the first place. That's a fair concern, she told her son. Then to Henderson, my son shouldn't have to worry about being treated like a criminal when he's just trying to buy milk and bread. What are you going to do to ensure this never happens again? Henderson thought quickly. I want to implement mandatory bias training for all employees. And I want to create a community advisory board to help guide our policies. Would you consider being part of that board? I'll consider it, Angela said. But first I want you to understand that this incident is going to have consequences beyond just firing one employee. When word gets out, and it will get out, about how a child was treated in your store, you're going to have to work very hard to rebuild trust in this community. Henderson nodded grimly. He could already see the social media posts, the news coverage, the potential boycotts. His comfortable neighborhood store was about to become the center of a much larger conversation about race and justice. As Sharon finished cleaning out her belongings, she approached Angela one last time. I hope you're happy, she said bitterly. You've ruined my life over nothing. Angela turned to face her fully, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of every courtroom victory, every criminal she'd put behind bars, every victim she'd fought for. I didn't ruin your life, Sharon. Your prejudice ruined your life. Your assumption that a black child couldn't possibly belong in a store unless he was stealing something ruined your life. Your decision to put your hands on someone else's child ruined your life. Sharon had no response to that. She grabbed her purse and headed for the exit, passing the customers who were still recording and whispering among themselves. And Sharon, Angela called after her, if you think this was about nothing, you clearly don't understand the impact of your actions. That little boy will remember this day for the rest of his life. The question is whether he'll remember it as the day a racist store manager made him feel like a criminal, or the day he learned that his mother will always fight for him. After Sharon left, the store felt different. The other customers gradually returned to their shopping, but there was an unmistakable tension in the air. Some seemed supportive of what they'd witnessed, nodding approvingly at Angela. Others seemed uncomfortable, as if they'd been forced to confront something they'd prefer to ignore. Henderson walked Angela and Tyler through the store, personally helping them complete their shopping. He insisted that their groceries were free, but Angela politely declined. "I came here to shop, and that's what I'm going to do. But I want you to remember this conversation when you're training your new employees." As they walked through the aisles, Tyler stayed close to his mother. "Mom, will other kids have to go through what I went through?" "Not if I can help it, baby," Angela replied. "That's part of why Mommy does the job she does, to make sure people are held accountable when they hurt others." At the checkout counter, Tyler quietly asked, "Mom, why did she hate me?" "I didn't do anything to her." Angela knelt down beside her son, right there in the middle of the store, not caring who was watching. "She didn't hate you, Tyler. She hated the idea of you. She looked at you and saw her own fears and prejudices instead of seeing the smart, kind, wonderful boy you actually are." "But that's not fair," Tyler said. "No, it's not fair," Angela agreed. "And that's exactly why we can't let it slide. When good people stay quiet about unfair things, those unfair things keep happening to other children." As they finished their transaction and headed toward the exit, Henderson stopped them one more time. "District Attorney Washington, I want you to know that I'm going to follow through on everything I promised. The training, the advisory board, all of it." "I'll be checking," Angela replied. "And Mr. Henderson, the next time a child knocks over a display in your store, I hope your first instinct is to help them clean it up, not to assume they're criminals." Outside the store, Angela loaded the groceries into her car while Tyler climbed into the back seat. As she started the engine, she could see people in the parking lot talking in small groups, undoubtedly discussing what they'd just witnessed. "Mom," Tyler said from the back seat, "are you really the district attorney?" Angela smiled at him in the rearview mirror. "Yes, baby. That's my job." "What does that mean exactly?" "It means I'm a lawyer whose job is to make sure that when people break the laws, they face consequences. I fight for people who can't fight for themselves." Tyler considered this. "Like you fought for me today?" "Exactly like that. But today was different because you're my son, and protecting you is the most important job I'll ever have." As they drove home, Angela's phone began buzzing with calls and text messages. Word was already spreading about the incident at Henderson's Market. Her assistant was forwarding her links to social media posts, and a local news reporter was requesting a comment. That evening, after Tyler had gone to bed, Angela sat in her home office, staring at the business card Sharon had left behind. It listed Henderson's Market as her employer and included her full name, Sharon Marie Kelman. A quick background check revealed that Sharon had been fired from 2 previous retail jobs, both times after complaints about her treatment of minority customers. Angela realized that Sharon's behavior wasn't an isolated incident but part of a pattern. She'd been bouncing from job to job, leaving a trail of hurt and humiliated customers in her wake, and somehow she'd never faced real consequences for her actions. The next morning, Angela's office was flooded with calls from parents sharing similar stories. Black mothers telling her about their children being followed in stores, Latino fathers describing how their kids were treated with suspicion, Asian families recounting incidents of casual racism disguised as customer service. The incident at Henderson's Market had opened a floodgate, revealing a pattern of discrimination that had been hiding in plain sight. Angela realized this was bigger than one racist store manager. It was a community-wide problem that required a community-wide solution. 3 weeks later, Angela stood at a podium in the Henderson's Market parking lot, addressing a crowd of over 200 community members. The local news crews were there, as were representatives from civil rights organizations and other elected officials. "What happened to my son could have happened to any child in this community," she began. "But it shouldn't happen to any child anywhere. Today we're announcing a new initiative, the Community Respect Program. The program would work with local businesses to implement bias training, establish clear protocols for customer complaints, and create accountability measures for employees who discriminated against customers. Businesses that participated would display a special decal showing their commitment to treating all customers with dignity. Change doesn't happen overnight," Angela continued. "But it starts with people saying enough is enough. It starts with communities coming together to demand better. And it starts with each of us teaching our children that they have the right to be treated with respect, no matter who they are or what they look like." Tyler stood beside his mother at the podium, wearing a suit and tie that made him look older than his 9 years. When Angela finished her speech, she handed him the microphone. I want other kids to know, Tyler said, his voice carrying clearly through the speakers, that if someone treats you badly just because of how you look, it's not your fault. And there are adults who will fight for you. The crowd erupted in applause, and Angela felt a surge of pride that had nothing to do with her professional achievements. Her son had taken an experience that could have traumatized him and turned it into fuel for helping others. 6 months later, Sharon Kellman was working at a fast food restaurant 2 counties away, her employment history making it impossible for her to find another management position in retail. She'd been required to attend anger management classes as part of a plea deal for the assault charges Angela had filed, and she'd been ordered to pay restitution for Tyler's medical evaluation after the incident. The civil lawsuit that followed had been settled out of court, with the settlement money going toward funding the Community Respect program. Sharon had been forced to write a public apology that was published in the local newspaper, acknowledging her actions and their impact. But perhaps most importantly, Henderson's Market had become a model for other businesses in the community. The mandatory training program had been expanded to include all customer-facing employees, and the Community Advisory Board had helped implement policies that protected customers from discrimination. Tyler returned to shopping at Henderson's Market, though always with the confidence of a child who knew his worth wasn't determined by other people's prejudices. The new manager, a young black woman named Ms. Patricia, always greeted him with a smile and asked about his mother's work. "You know your mom is famous around here," Ms. Patricia told him during one visit. "She's famous because she's good at her job," Tyler replied matter-of-factly. "But she's my mom because she loves me." That simple statement captured the essence of what had made the difference that day at Henderson's Market. Angela hadn't saved her son from discrimination because she was the district attorney. She'd fought for him because she was his mother. Her position had given her the tools to ensure consequences, but her love had given her the motivation to use them. The story of Tyler Washington and Sharon Kellman became a case study taught in business schools and diversity training programs across the country. It demonstrated how quickly prejudice could backfire when it targeted the wrong person, but more importantly, it showed how one incident could become a catalyst for broader change. Sometimes justice comes wearing designer heels and carrying a law degree. Sometimes it comes in the form of a mother who refuses to let her child be treated as less than he is. And sometimes, just sometimes, the universe arranges things so that the person who needs to learn about respect the hard way picks exactly the wrong child to disrespect. Tyler Washington learned that day that he would never have to face the world's prejudices alone. Sharon Kellman learned that actions have consequences, and that the child you underestimate today might just be the one whose mother has the power to change your life forever. The most important lesson, though, belonged to everyone else who witnessed what happened. That change is possible, justice can prevail, and sometimes the most ordinary Tuesday afternoon can become the moment that changes everything.